Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I am stuffed full of cold, so if my voice sounds even more strange than usual, then that is why. I don't know where it's come from. It's a horrible Christmas bug, and I hope that you guys have managed to avoid it, but I guess at least I've got it now before Christmas week, so I guess it's not the end of the world. But if there's any weird edits, then that's because I have paused the recording while I cough my lungs up. Now, just a few bits of admin before we get started. If you have been following along with the Advent Calendar Challenge, then today's clue has gone live a little bit earlier. Today's clue has gone live at 6 PM. That's so I can get this video out at 6:15. So make sure you check that out. And also, if you have supported Piano Miniature's latest Kickstarter for 1809, then those files have been released today. My link went to my junk mailbox. So make sure you check your junk. That's good advice. But make sure you check your junk if you have backed that Kickstarter. So with your junk freshly checked, let us get into the subject of today's video. And we are going to look at a ranking from worst to best of the plastic multi-part options available to the French for their cavalry. Now there are 3 manufacturers that do a combined total of 10 sets of French Cavalry. We have 3 each from Warlord Games and Victrix, and 4 from the venerable Perry twins. And this is a bit of a strange one. Obviously, if you want, say, plastic Graziers, well, the Perrys are the only ones who do plastic Graziers, so the best ones are the Perry ones, because they're the only ones who do them. But I wanted to go into the sets in general, just do a quick review of them. I believe, I'm just having a look at them now, I have all of these sets. Yes, I have every single one of these boxes. So I have put them together and I have painted all of them except the Victrix Dragoons, which I have just glued together. I haven't painted any of those yet. So in this instance, I can give you a pretty good review from my own experiences. Now, we are going to start in 10th place. Now, one thing I want to say is that just because a set is in 10th place, it doesn't mean that it's irredeemable, or if you own them, that you should be like, oh yeah, wasting my money or anything like that. That's not true at all. There is value in all of these models. It's just some kits are better than others. And down in 10th place, we start off with the Warlord Games Chasseurs. Now, one of the big problems with these is the Chasseurs themselves are actually not too bad. They're a little bit boring, but they're not too bad. The sabres are very fine. Now, luckily, you get them at rest, so they're resting the sabres on their shoulders. So that's not too much of a problem. You're going to have to go some to break them from there. They are, of course, made for Waterloo as well. If you wanted to be super uniform accurate, then you would only be able to use them for 1812 to 1815. But, that said, I don't think that's necessarily the end of the world. No one's picking up your chasseurs and looking closely at them, because, let's be honest, they are the most boring of cavalry types. And I ummed and ahed whether these guys should be last or whether it should be the Hussars. And ultimately, these guys lost out because they're the more boring of the two. So that's why Chasseurs are in number 10. Now, one of their big problems is they have, and this is a thing that Warlord Games still continue to do, I believe, they have a metal command. Now, you've got all the plastic sprues. All the plastic sprues have got your sabres on them. That's fine. But they have a 3-part metal command set, which is an eagle, which you can glue onto a plastic guy, that's fine. But they also have a metal trumpeter and a metal officer. Now, this could just be me, but my officer's horse snapped at the ankle. Now, the horse only has 1 foot on the ground. It's quite a nice dynamic pose, actually. We're going to get into the horses in a second. It's quite a nice dynamic pose, but they use a very cheap metal, and he's snapped at the ankle. Now, the problem with him snapping at the ankle is that's obviously a very thin point on the model, and it's actually too thin for me to pin as well. So I can't actually repair the model, which is a real shame, because he's not bad. He's not bad. We're going to get on to the Hussars in a second. I think he's a slightly nicer metal character. So it's a combination of the pretty boring plastics. You've only got the one pose, and that is their arms at rest, and their ill-advised metal command add-ons. Now, the horses are the same for all of the Warlord light cavalry products. I only do light cavalry for the French. And they are, shall we say, characterful. They look a little bit more like cartoon horses than actual horses. Their details on their faces are quite big, so they've got a lot of character to them. They just don't look like horses, which is a little bit of a shame. They kind of look like ginormous dogs. Which, to be fair, my sister's dog used to think that police horses were just large dogs and would play with her in the way that other dogs would, but they weren't interested in that. So maybe it's me that's wrong. Maybe horses are just ginormous dogs. But in this case, unfortunately, the sculpts of the horses are pretty poor. The poses they're all at the walk. So, I mean, that's fair enough. If your arms are at rest, and then the horses at walk, that's fair enough. I hate like galloping horses and blokes who are just like sat on the back like num 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 num. Yeah, no, that's a bit silly. So at least they fit with the models, and that's fine. So I'm going to say in 10th place are the Warlord Chasseurs. Oh no, I should say as well, sorry, that these guys come in the Waterloo starter box. Now they're not bad for that actually, because you don't have the Metal Command group in there. So one of the big problems with the set actually isn't in that box set. So you can just paint one of your models, give him some auglets or something like that, and there you go, jobs are good. And you've got your officer there. You don't need to worry about buying a metal upgrade. And if you do buy metals, you're probably best off just buying the Perrys, although they will be significantly bigger. So I wouldn't recommend mixing them in a unit, but you could at a pinch. In 9th place, and it really does pain me to say this, again, it's Warlord. And now we are looking at Warlord's Line Lancers. Now, the reason that these guys are in 9th place is they are effectively the Chasseurs. They just have some Lancers on the sprues as well. Obviously, they've got different headwear as well. They've got the Grecian helmet. But effectively, they're just Chasseurs. Particularly if you give the second rank Sabres. Now, historically, Lancers would probably only have the front rank with the Lance. The second rank and beyond, they would just have their Sabres. But when I'm doing Lancers, everyone gets a Lance. I'm not messing around with that kind of rubbish. Everyone's getting a Lance. And there is quite an interesting choice here of holding the Lance across the neck of the horse. They're not charging, they're just walking. But it's quite nice, actually, that the Lancers aren't just sort of in the foot cup and straight up or at the charge. This one, he's sort of holding it across the neck of the horse. And it actually adds quite a nice bit of dynamism. The reason why this one falls slightly below the final Warlord one, again, is the Metal Command. The Metal Command are not good. Although that said, the officer, his horse, does have at least 3 parts that touch the base, so he's less likely to snap off. He's kind of ordering the men to charge, he's spearing his horse, but in spite of all of that, he's actually quite a boring miniature. So that's why I have Lancers down in 9th place. They're pretty boring. They're not that much more exciting than the Chasseurs. The posers are walking, which is fair enough, but again, not particularly interesting. And that problem with the Metal Command. The Metal Commander is not a great model. In fact, I would say he's probably the worst of the 3. But he does have at least 3 points of contact on the base. So that means that he's pretty sturdy. Even if he does snap off, you can probably repair him. So that brings us to 8th place, and it is a full clean sweep for Warlord. Down at the bottom, we are finishing up with their Hussars. Now, again, all of the things I've said before apply to the Hussars. The horses look a little bit strange. The posers are not that interesting. Again, they're all shouldered arms. I mean, a sort of shouldered arms is the march attack of cavalry, I suppose. Although in this instance, they do have some sabres that are out there waving as well, so that's a little bit better. But they aren't galloping; they are very much at the walk. It's the same horses as before, and you get the Metal Command. Now, again, there's pluses and minuses with this one. The Metal Commander only has 1 horse leg on the ground, so he is not great. So there's a very good chance that he's going to snap as well. The reason why he is, for my money, the best of the 3 sets, though, is that he's in a really nice, interesting pose. I've not seen this pose on any other Napoleonic figure, and that is he's holding his sword up in the salute. I've not seen any other figures like that, and it's a really, really nice pose. His horse is a little less animated than the other 2. Then he's not springing forward, but he is still quite animated, and that's good because, as I say, he's doing the salute. So I wouldn't want him on doing that on a horse that's like leaping over a hedge or something like that. That'd be a bit silly. So no, the Hussars are an okay set. I would say. I mean, we're down in the third worst set for the French Cavalry, and to be honest, they're okay. I would more than happily, if someone said, Tim, I've got you some French Hussars from Warlord, I wouldn't be upset by that. I'd go, okay, yeah, thanks. And, I'd get them painted up, and they would take their place in my army. They are not bad miniatures at all. They're just not as good as the ones that are coming up, I think. So, with Warlord dispatched, who is going to be the worst of the other two? Well, it's going to be, unfortunately, the Perrys, and it's going to be their set of Dragoons. Now, as I said before, and I cannot emphasize this enough, there is absolutely nothing wrong with the Perry Dragoons whatsoever. There's nothing wrong with the Warlord figures either. But the Perry Dragoons I've put down in 7th place, and that is because there is a distinct lack of options with them. Now, Dragoons were the workhorse of the cavalry, really. And one of the positives that you get in the set is you do get dismounted Dragoons as well. Really, really nice addition. No problem with that. I think that's great. In fact, there was a very good chance that was going to pop them up into 6th. But I'll explain why they're in 7th when we get to the 6th place, if that makes sense. So you get dismounted Dragoons as well. So that's really nice. Particularly good for something like 1809. And you get the option to have them charging, or again with their arms, the sabers resting on their shoulders at rest. Now, one thing that I do really like about the Perrys, and this is going to go on to all of their miniatures, is that their swords are quite chunky. There is enough room on a Perry's cavalry sword to have the fuller. That's the bit that's sometimes called a blood channel. That's not actually what it's there for. It's there to lighten the blade. But there is room for the fuller to be sculpted onto the sword. That's a really nice detail. I really like that. The fact that the Dragoon sabers, and we'll come on to this more in a bit, have a slight curve at the tip, I really like as well. It's not as noticeable as the hatchet tip on the British cavalry, and that's going to play massively towards them when we do the Brits, but we're concentrating on the French at the moment. So the Dragoons they're just, again, they are the workhorse of the army. There were over 30 regiments of Dragoons in the French army, and if you made 10 of them using the Perrys, then you're good to go, really, aren't you? There is nothing wrong with the models. They are really nice. They are just a little bit dated now. They were some of the first of the Perrys brought out, and they're just showing their age a little bit, but they're still absolutely usable. You get helmets and you get bearskins. If I had my absolute dream, then you would also get a farrier in there, but you don't. The command group is nice, plastic, most importantly, and available to buy separately as well for a decent price. The horses they're sort of halfway between walking and charging. I guess a canter would be the technical term. And that means you can get away with either having the horses at rest, or you can have them thrust forward at the charge. They're a really nice set. I've got 5 regiments of them, I think. 4 or 5 regiments of them that I've painted up. Really, really nice. They let you do mid-war Dragoons as well, so that's to their advantage. But they're just a little bit dated. It'd be nice if there were a few extra options in the kit. Something, as I say, like a farrier. Something like that. But as it stands, if you want French Dragoons, they're a decent set, but perhaps not my top-rated set. One thing I would say for the Perrys, they use the same horses for their heavy cavalry, and then they use the same horses for their light cavalry. Their horses are all okay. They're not amazing. They're certainly better than the Warlord ones. They are okay. They are fully serviceable. One of the other things I'd say to the Perry's advantage as well is they have a huge catalogue of metals that you can supplement them with. And this is something that Warlord don't have. You can't really criticise them for that. They've obviously focused on the plastics, and that's fine. But with the Perrys, if you want, say, you've got a regiment at the charge, you've got a regiment at rest, and you're like, well, I want the 3rd regiment, but I don't want the same command group. Luckily, you can go out there and get yourself a Perry's metal one, which fits in perfectly scale-wise with the other 2. I would say these are quite bigger than the Warlord miniatures, and they're quite a bit smaller than the Victrix ones. So they're a good middle ground. I probably wouldn't mix them with the other manufacturers, though. And now up in 6th place. I said that the Dragoons were one of the first kits that the Perrys brought out. In 6th place, we do have the first plastic cavalry kit that the Perrys brought out, and that is the Cuirassiers / Carabineers set. Now again, these guys suffer from very many of the same problems that the Dragoons do. They are a little inflexible. You have, for the majority of the time, you have the torsos and the legs in one piece, although you do have one model per sprue that has a separate torso. That's to enable you to make a trumpeter, but it means you've got a little bit of movement in his torso as well. You can move him to the side a little bit, make him a little bit more animated. Again, you've got charging arms, you've got at-rest arms. One thing that you don't have, and you don't have with the Hussars, with the Dragoons, is slashing arms. You've got charging and you've got at-rest, but you don't have in the midst of combat. And that's a little bit of a shame. You could convert your own, I suppose, but it'd probably be too much effort to be worth it, to be honest. Now, the reason that these guys get the nod over the Dragoons is that, as I said in the title, you get 2 regiments worth of soldiers in here. You get Carabineers and you get Cuirassiers. Now, obviously, they are post-1812 Carabineers, but so you get 2 different regiments, whereas with the Dragoons, you only really get Dragoons. And these are really useful figures to have in plastic because they can be very easily kit-bashed or even just repainted to make other units. There were Russian Cuirassier units that used French equipment. They just used Russian heads. So if you've got some spare ones from perhaps an Austrian collecting friend, he can give you those. Or the Spanish Cuirassiers wore exactly the same uniform as the French, just in red. You could even use them as Württemberg Garde du Corps or Westphalian Garde du Corps. You could use them as Saxon Cuirassiers. You can use them as a huge variety of different things, and that's why they're really useful. They are a dated kit. Don't get me wrong on that one. They are quite dated. They are currently the only plastic Cuirassiers out there. Now, luckily, I think the Perrys do one of the best sets of models of all time with the Cuirassiers, and that's the metal ones where they're at reserve. They're like putting their helmets on and things like that. That's an absolutely phenomenal regiment. I've got a bunch of those. But if you're going to go for plastics, and this video is concentrating on plastics, then those are absolutely the ones to go for. As I said before, there are metal commands, or you can go elite companies in metal. You can also plunder the metal rangers from the Perrys if you want a bit more variety in your Cuirassiers. Although that said, I think all Cuirassiers were considered to be elite company, weren't they? You could also perhaps use the Carabinier helmets on infantrymen to make yourself some engineers of the guard as well. So, not only are they useful for French collectors, they are useful for the collectors of other nations, and you can get maybe more stuff out of the bits than you initially think you can as well. So, in 6th place, that was the Perry's Heavy Cavalry, their Cuirassiers and Carabinier box set. So now we're going to move into 5th place. Now, this unit has switched with the one that I've put in 2nd. They were originally in 2nd, but I've moved them around, and I'm going to explain my reasons for this. In 5th place, we have the Perry Hussars. Now, this is, again, a very early set. I think they did the Cuirassiers, then the Dragoons, then the Hussars. And you can tell because the box is very clearly at a transitional stage. You have the torsos with both arms connected, and they are separate to the legs. You can either give them breeches, which was what they would wear in their full uniform, or you can give them overalls. Additionally, the pelisses come separate, so you can either, you could do a bit of sculpting with some green stuff, make some fur around the cuffs. You could have your guys wearing their pelisses, or you can obviously glue them on the back and have them slung over the shoulder, as was most usually worn. In fact, some of the pelisses didn't even have real sleeves. They were just sewn on. They looked like sleeves. So some regiments couldn't even wear their pelisses. And there's some question about whether you would actually wear it in battle or not. I suspect you probably would, because it will provide protection for the off arm, so the arm that's not holding the saber. But who knows? Who knows with these things? So the Perry's Hussars are in 5th place. As I say, the arms are connected to the torso. There's one he's sword straight up in the air. He's not a bad model, but do you need 4 of them in one regiment? It's a little bit dicey. There's one who's holding the sword back, almost like for a slash. He's a lovely model. And then the other 2 are they're pretty standard as well. The options you get in there are really nice. This is why I had it in second place originally, because you can make hussars from basically 1797 right through to 1815. You get the Mirliton, you get the Shako, you get the Busby, you get all of the different headwear options that the hussars wore throughout the period, and their uniforms didn't hugely change. So again, one of the really great things about the Perry's hussars is that you can buy 10 boxes of them, paint them all as different regiments, and they won't really look the same because they're so colourfully different that'll trick your eye into thinking they're different units. Unfortunately, the lack of posability really hurts them as far as I'm concerned. And this is something that makes the Warlord hussars actually better than these ones, is that because the arms are connected, there's not really a huge amount you can do. I converted a box of these to be Russian hussars, and I was tempted to drill out the hands and put lancers in the front rank, but the problem was the posers didn't really make that look viable. It would have looked a bit stupid. They would have looked like models who should be holding swords, who've had them cut off and drilled out, and lancers put there instead. So I just didn't bother. I just gave them all sabres in the end. But that is, I mean, that's a slight problem in that, yes, they are not monopose. Well, yeah, they are monopose effectively, although you can twist them at the waist. That's about the best you can do. I really like that you have the option to put them in overalls or breeches. As I say, these were very much a transitory box set. When we come to looking at the British, we'll see a lot more box sets that came out after this change had been made, and why I think the Perrys will do a lot better when we look at the British cavalry. When we go on to Austro-Russians, even better again. So, as it stands, the French cavalry were the first ones they brought out. They learnt a lot from them. They're, again, as with the Warlord ones, there's nothing to be, oh, no, I've only got the Perry Dragoons or Perry Hussars. That's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with them. They're great models. But I just think they've learned some lessons after they came out. So now we're getting to the meat and potatoes of the list. We've gone through all the vegetables that no one really asked for, and now we are moving into the top four. In fourth place is a new challenger. This is the first set of Victrix Cavalry, and it is the Victrix Dragoons. Now these are in here at the lowest of the Victrix sets because they are for a very limited area. They are for 1812 to 1815, which is unusual because Victrix have really concentrated on earlier than that. They do the French for 1805 or 1808. They do Austrians for 1809. So I'm surprised that they've gone with Waterloo because they don't. I guess they do the British as well, I suppose. So that's fair enough. But yeah, these guys are the bottom of the Victrix tree. Now, why is that? Well, one of the points is that they are a rather weird period. They do 1807 to 1812. Now, I think that's quite good. It obviously covers the battles in Germany, and most importantly for me, of course, the Danube campaign. So that's great. But it's a bit of an odd one to take when you would suspect that they would do Waterloo as well. So I'm not really sure why they couldn't move them through. One of the things is, of course, the jackets are very different. Why you couldn't just stick an extra 12 bodies on there, I don't really know. Now, this is one of the things that you do get in the set, though. You get an absolute gazillion spare parts. So these are really, really nice. You get bearskins for the elite companies. You get you get an officer sprue. You get, obviously, eagles. You get just the whole set. You get an absolute plethora of parts. And that's really good. It can be a little bit much. You're like, look, I just want to glue some dragoons together. I don't really care that much. Do I really want to have to glue the individual legs together? Well, you only have to do it once, I suppose. Well, 12 times, I suppose, for a unit. So that's not necessarily the end of the world. And now think about it, actually. Speaking of the 12 models, something that I hadn't mentioned with the Perrys is you tend to get 14 models in their cavalry sets, which is really good. Because it means that by buying an extra officer and a trumpeter, you can get yourself 2 8-man units, which is what I use for my getting started videos. So there is that monetary bonus to the Perrys as well. But I'm trying to keep the focus away from the money and more just on the quality of the minis themselves. Now, one of the things I like about the Victrix horses is they are big. They are very big. These Victrix models, in general, are a lot bigger than the Perrys or Warlord. I don't necessarily mind that so much because these are heavy horses. So they should be pretty chunky boys. So I don't necessarily mind that so much. Their poses are, again, they're a little bit similar to the Perrys in that they are kind of halfway between charging and not charging. So they are, well, no, that's not true, actually. The vast majority of them are charging. So you do get sabres where you can have them resting on their shoulder, but by and large, the unit is charging forward. And that's pretty cool. It gives them a real dynamism. And one of the other things as well is it means that the sabres are often alongside the neck of the horse, which protects them from being damaged as well. So there is a practical consideration there. The number of hussars, Perry hussars, who's the guy who's got the sabre right up in the air, the number of those that have snapped off, you would not believe. So that is very helpful as well. The swords are very nicely detailed. As I said, you get the fuller on them, the same as the Perrys. So yeah, no, the Victrix Dragoons, very, very nice. They are all charging though, which is cool, but your cavalry is often in reserve. They're often not galloping around. But yes, you know what? There's nothing wrong with having a nicely animated unit, I don't think. So in the third place, well, let's just recap what we've got from 10th to 4th before we get into the placing positions. Down in 10th, we have the Warlord Game Chasseurs. In 9th, the Lancers, and in 8th, their Hussars. Then in 7th place, we've got Perry Dragoons. 6th, we've got their Cuirassiers and Carabineers. And 5th, we've got their Hussars. In 4th place, we have the Victrix Dragoons. Now, some of you will have, the wise amongst you will know that there is 1 Perry's missing and 2 Victrix. So, who is going to be in 3rd place? In 3rd place, we have Victrix and their Lancers of the Imperial Guard. Now, regular viewers of this channel will know that there is no one who loves Lancers of the Imperial Guard more than me. The Polish Lancers and Dutch Lancers are my absolute top units of the Napoleonic Wars. I love both of those units. I think they're phenomenal. However, I do have problems with the Victrix kit. Again, I've said these before. Some of you may be familiar with my my issues here. Some of you may not. One of the big problems I've got with them is the horses. Now, the horses are extreme, shall we say. They are extreme charging. They are leaping over Beecher's Brook in their desire. They're basically like the Mo Deng of horses. They just want chaos and disaster. They are at full head. They are going large. They are not holding back. They are a crazy, uncontrolled charge. Which, you know what? If you're looking at something like Samo Sierra, I think that works out really well. Maybe even if you wanted to do them as the Vistula Legion, you could use them for Albuera, and they would be very, very fitting for that as well. For me, though, the horses are a little bit overdone. They're a little bit over-animated. Now, that is a criticism. I understand that not everyone is going to have that same criticism, but for me, that is a bit of a problem. The second thing that I've got an issue with them for is that they are specifically for the Imperial Guard. Now, this generally means they've got a lot of lace and they've got the Imperial cipher on the saddlecloth. Unfortunately, it means that you can't use them for other lancers. Now, you wouldn't want to use them for line lancers because they don't have chapkas and all that kind of stuff. That's fine. But I have a box in the cellar that I'm going to be doing as the Lancers of Berg, and they're going to require quite a bit of modification to be suitable for that. Now, luckily, the Lancers of Berg, they had ridiculously designed uniforms by Murat, so they can probably get away with the Imperial Guard not looking too bad. But there are other units that you could have made that, unfortunately, because I've got all the Imperial Guard detailing on them, is going to be a little bit more difficult. The aforementioned Vistula Legion Lancers being an example, although I believe you do get chapkas for the Vistula Legion. Let me have a quick look. Yes, I think you do. Yes, I think you do. The sunburst brass plate on the front of them. So, yes, it does say on the website that you can convert them into Duchy of Berg. It also mentions Russian Lancers. Now, they have brought out Russian Lancers, so I'd probably go with them. Although, I would suggest, actually, looking at them, if you could find the right heads, you might be able to make Guard Cossacks out of them. If you think that they would be a good basis for Guard Cossacks, let me know in the comments down below. I think you could probably get away with it, but let me know if you think I'm smoking something, because I may well be on that one. So the Lancers of the line are in 3rd place. I would say that Perrys do metal Lancers for the Polish and the Dutch. However, no way. If you're going to get them, get these plastic ones. They are absolutely superb. Really nice models. They're just a little over animated for me, and that holds them back from second place. And in second place, we have, as I said, I swapped these with the Perry Hussars earlier on. These are the Perry Chasseurs. Now, the reason why the Chasseurs are originally lower is because, as I said at the beginning of the video, Chasseurs are boring. No one cares about Chasseurs. But in this case, this is one of those sets that is post the change for the Perrys. So, not only do you get separate sword arms, but you also have separate torsos and legs. You get enough for either a full unit in campaign dress or a full unit in full dress. Now, you only get enough horses for one of those. Some people have said, well, you know, if you buy the horse sprues from the Perrys, then you can make 2 units for the price of 1. That is true, but by the time you pay for the horse sprues, I think it's like £3 less than just buying a whole new box. So you may as well just get a new box. Now, despite being pretty boring, they are, however, very useful. There were lots of regiments of chasseurs. Again, I think there were around about 30. And I'm sure those of you who have been at school or working in corporate jobs know the hussars are the person on the team who looks good, but never actually does any work, but always comes up smelling of roses at the end. The chasseurs are the people who do all the work. So that's why I like the chasseurs a lot more than the hussars, is that these are the guys who actually get the job done. The Perry's ones, they have a lot of different options and are useful across the war, so particularly in their campaign dress. So that's why the chasseurs are in second place. Additionally, they are an excellent source of parts. You can also convert them into lancers if you needed to, perhaps using some helmets from the Carabiniers. So yeah, overall, I think the chasseurs are not only a great set in of themselves, but I think they make a really nice basic kit for making other stuff as well. I should have said with the dragoons, as with these chasseurs, you can also use them for satellite armies, particularly Italy. Their dragoons and their chasseurs were exactly the same as the French ones, just slightly. Well, in fact, for these cavalry options, they were exactly the same. They just had different coloured flags. So that's it. So that's your list from 10 to 1. Oh, no, it's not. Ah, you thought I'd forgotten. The winner, I had not forgotten, really. I was just messing with you. We have number 1, which is the best French cavalry set in the hobby at the moment. For me, it is Victrix, and it is the Chasseurs of the Imperial Guard. I was really surprised when they brought these out. These are a very unusual unit. You're only going to buy one of them. I'm not really sure how they thought they would get their money back from making a plastic die for this, but they are absolutely gorgeous. I finished painting a regiment of them this year, and I wish I had them, but I haven't based them yet. So that's the reason why I'm not getting them up. But I can assure you, they are phenomenal models. However, I will never paint a single one of them again. These are not models to be thrown together and bashed out over the course of a weekend. These are really, really nice models. Very, very detailed. They've got a lot of quite deep incising on there, so you can really get to the lace. And the thing is with the Chasseur à Cheval of the Guard, is they're not like regular chasseurs. They don't just wear green and like, you know, a pink plastron or blue or something lame like that. These guys are basically dressed as hussars. I'm not really sure why they're classed as chasseurs and not hussars, but there you go. They wear a green. Top, the name of which is momentarily escaping me. I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments. And they have a red pelisse. So the green and red look really, really good together. As I say, they've got a lot of detail on them. One of the things that I really like about the Victrix models, and this goes to all of the sets, is that the saber scabbard and the saber tash, which is connected to it, you glue those on separately, so it really looks like they're bouncing around as the cavalry are charging forward. Now, I think the chasseur of the Chasseur à Cheval of the Guard are absolutely phenomenal models. You can use the same models from 1800 to 1815, so you can use them at Austerlitz, you can use them at Borodino. Oh, well, maybe not Borodino, the Guard didn't get too involved there, but you can use them at Austerlitz, you can use them in the 1812 campaign or 1814 campaign. You can use them at Waterloo. You can use them at places like Eylau, or any battle, Friedland, any battle where the Emperor was. These guys should be with your army. They are absolutely phenomenal models. There is, however, a couple of criticisms I would make. The first one is there is a lot of detail on them, and I mean a lot of detail on them. If you're not a confident painter, I would not start with these guys. They look fantastic, but you will be disappointed if you don't do the job that you think you could do with them. Let's put it that way. If you need to be either take the plunge going in, or you have to be confident that you can do a good job of them, because they are so detailed. They show up mistakes quite a lot, and I'm not fully happy with mine. That's one of the reasons why it's taking me so long to base them. The second thing is that they are very fiddly. As I say, you need to glue the scabbards and saber-tashes on separately. That's the same with them all. It's one of the reasons why the dragoons are a bit lower down. I don't really care to do that with dragoons. I'm like, look, I just don't care. Just bang them together, get them on the table. But with something like Chasseurs Chevalier of the Guard, you're only having one unit. Let's make the most of it. Again, you could use them as Italians, but so you might have a second unit. But realistically, you're only going to have one unit in your army, and they are really, really nice. The final criticism I would make of them is they are mahoosive. I mean, absolutely mahoosive. They're more like Primaris Space Marine scale. Maybe not that big, but they are pretty big. I would suggest they're 32 mil rather than 28 mil. They are beefy, beefy boys. They are supposed to be like cavalry. It's the same with the Lancers of the Guard. They are supposed to be like cavalry. Their horses are a lot chunkier than the Perry's heavy cavalry horses. Just be aware of that going in. I wouldn't necessarily mix them in units, but I can't really see a reason why you would. If you're going to have a standalone Chasseurs Chevalier of the Guard unit, these are absolutely the guys for you. They are a phenomenal unit. If you are a painter, if you're more interested in the uniforms and the painting of the Napoleonic period, and you're not necessarily that bothered about just collecting your British army or your Russian army or whatever, and then get a unit of these. These guys are absolutely gorgeous. If you want to enter painting competitions, again, you've got 12 models here that you could do. Each individual one you could enter into a painting competition. They are that detailed. So that's it. Victrix have won out in the Battle of French Cavalry. Now, I believe that means the Perrys won French Infantry, Warlord won British Infantry, and Victrix have won French Cavalry. So, who's going to be the next victor when we look at the best plastic sets out there? It's going to be British Cavalry. Again, the big three, they all do sets of British Cavalry. We've got Victrix, they do some Household Cavalry, some Heavy Dragoons. We've got the Perrys, they do a huge variety. And we've got the Warlord, Household Brigade, and the Scots Greys as well. So please join me for that. But next week, we're going to have the first of 2 linked battle reports. The week after, we're going to have the second one of those. Then we're going to have a small break for Christmas. Then we'll be back in the new year. I'm hoping that you are enjoying the Christmas Advent Calendar Challenge. I hope you are, anyway. There was some teething problems, but we seem to have sorted those out now. So make sure you keep your answers. I want to see them on the 24th of December, because you could win prizes. You could win a Waterloo starter set, including the Warlord Chasseurs, which are genuinely worth having. Or you could win an epic starter army. But thank you very, very much for listening today. I hope you have put up with my sickly sounding voice and the occasional coughs and splutters. But thank you very much, and I shall see you guys next time.